Going back to the middle of September, I broke down the Bengals 0-2 start, largely focusing on the issues in protection from a schematic and player-specific standpoint. I also talked about some of the tendencies and the lack of creativity on the offensive side, which led to poor efficiency, despite all the weapons in the skill position group and an elite quarterback in the center. Throughout the season, I've applauded the change in mindset and how it's become one of the most effective units in both facets of the offense. Something I've referenced several times is that from week 5 on, they've almost exclusively operated out of shotgun, now above 78% for the whole season, and since then, they're the only team in the top 5 of EPA per dropback and rush, as well as success rate in both areas. I went a little more in depth about some of the spacing and wrinkles that they've added when I previewed the matchup against the Chiefs back in week 13, which is obviously very relevant now in light of the rematch on Sunday. But today I want to focus on some of the things they did in the 27-10 win over the Bills in the Divisional Round on offense and defense, which gave them schematic advantages that they fully capitalized on. The Bengals clearly controlled the game physically up front on both sides of the ball, despite missing 3 starting offensive linemen, but they also came into this matchup with a much better plan of how to attack their opponents. Here are 5 offensive plays which mostly they specifically put into the game plan for this matchup, and how they took advantage of the rules and eyes of defenders for the Bills. This is from Cincinnati's second drive for the day, after they had already scored a long touchdown, with Joe Burrow finding Jamar Chase transitioning his route away from the free safety after climbing up the pocket. The Bengals motioned to a 4-strong look, with Jamar Chase coming over on this orbit motion. They did toss and flip it to him on a swing route once to establish him as a threat, but it's the way that he drew the eyes of defenders in general throughout the day, and here specifically because of all the talent that they have close together. But what Cincinnati's offensive coaching staff knows this also does is get the nickel to replace the will linebacker, as Buffalo bumps Matt Milano out and shifts Tremaine Edmonds that way. This not only gives the single receiver all this space to work with at the bottom, but also makes Buffalo extremely vulnerable to weak side runs, and that's exactly how Cincinnati attacks them here, with a T-power or T-lead, which was a common scheme that they ran, typically with an offside tight end, executing the wraparound, and the other pole responsible for the actual kickout, as the Bills stuck in overfronts mostly. And you can see here, easy yardage. Let's get to the end zone view here and check out how far Tremaine Edmonds actually shifts over here as that motion comes. You can see him all the way bumping out here until he's almost out of the box basically, just because of that passing threat that the 4 wide receiver side presents, which now left guard and center can legitimately double team the one technique without having to combo off to the backside backer, and you have an offensive tackle leading up one-on-one in the hole against the 190-pound defensive back. That's not going to end well, as you see here. Mixon slices underneath it and rips off an easy 16 yards. Later that drive, this is what they draw up on 3rd and 7. Since it was one of the most screen-heavy teams early in the season, it's still a significant portion of the game plans, because you want to get the ball into the hands of these playmakers on the perimeter. I don't remember this at all from the regular season, however. They might have done some bubble slant combinations of the RPO game, but this is a designed shot play to tight end Hayden Hurst, acting like he'll block the corner that is lined up over Jamar Chase here, where he faked the slip or tunnel screen, only to turn his rail route up the sideline and come wide open for the 15-yard touchdown. As we let this roll, look at the attention that Chase draws here, with the boundary safety Jordan Poyer gaining ground late. This looks like cover 4 to me, but as you can see, the corner, safety, and linebacker try to shoot down as Burrow pump fakes to Chase and then lets it fly for his tight end for an easy 6 points. Now in the second half, the Bills just hit a field goal, cutting it to a 17-10 lead, and the Bengals answer with another touchdown drive, and this kind of stuff breaks the spirits of the defense. Cincinnati's at the fringe of field goal range after Trent Irwin just dropped an easy pass on a crosser to at least get them very close to the sticks, and now it's 3rd and 10. The Bills load the D-line to the right side of the offensive line, with the 2 linebackers threatening up the A and B gap on the field side respectively. While bailing Matt Milano out and peeling Gregory Rousseau off the opposite edge, while actually playing cover 3 behind it, and what ends up killing them here is that they blitz the nickel, who we just talked about being targeted in run defense earlier, which will leave the flats out here completely unoccupied. However, as we let this roll here a little bit, you can see that Milano expects another deep inbreaker behind him and sells out to gain depth vertically, And that's where a little automatic adjustment comes into play, as the tight end is told to just chip a blitz off the slot if he sees all this green or rather white grass in this case, and to get out there. Burrow checks it down to him, Hurst just speeds the safety racing down here to the first down marker, and the drive continues. And then they get to 3rd and inches, just inside the red zone. They just ran a sneak with Burrow to get them there, and check out how much the Bills defense entirely is pinched inside. There's still nickel personnel, because that's what they live in anyway, and Cincinnati smartly is in a free wide receiver set themselves, with very condensed alignments, but the Bills fill both A-gaps with the defensive tackles, the D-ends are slightly tilted inside, and backers are directly aiming at the B-gaps, plus the free safety is basically the only defender further than 3 yards away from the line of scrimmage. And I'm pretty sure that the Bills actually had called the sneak here initially, but you can see Burrow can that play, meaning they get to a secondary call, which in this case becomes a crack toss to the weak side with Mixon. Both wide receivers over there do a great job, with Chase having this crack or pin down on the defensive end Jack Lawson, and Boyd transitioning to a nickel was a bit too much to draw here, while that allows the left guard and tackle to pull out to the edge, where as we watch this run, the left tackle takes Tremaine Edmonds, who has to shoot out there for a ride, and now rookie guard Cordell Volson headhunting Trey White at corner. Mixon rips off a quick 13 yards and sets up another touchdown for himself. And finally, this is just a 13-yard catch by Mixon to round out the third quarter, but it's these little details which really made the difference throughout this matchup. Now getting the Bengals to midfield, entering the final 15 minutes, and after pass interference on that throw to T. Higgins, where those two Bills defenders ran into each other, that sets up a field goal to make this a 3-score game again. Something I talked about in my preview of Cincinnati, Kansas City in early December, the way the Bengals have improved the way that they can create space, with route distribution and some natural rubs that occur. Here they are in a 2x2 set, with Higgins in a reduced split, just inside the numbers, and basically next to him a tight end in an offset alignment, where they run what some people refer to as an Ohio concept, with a dig by the tight ends and a quick in or more of a delayed shallow cross underneath by Higgins, plus they flare Mixon out across his alignment into the flats, along with a fade and deep out combination at the top here. Pre-snap with Trey White racing up here and squaring up the receiver, and what the rest of the defense looks like, this appears to be 2-man when you have those 2 safeties deep and man coverage across the board, and that's what I thought during the live broadcast, but it's actually quarters where the corners have to build deep, and now Milano again, an all-pro player who had some good moments by the way, since his name somehow has come up several times now, is responsible for that area between the hook and the flats out here, especially if the running back becomes part of the pattern. But he can freely allow the tight end to push up the seams in this type of coverage, and then he ever so slightly shuffles inside with Higgins here to pass it off to his fellow linebacker Tremaine Edmonds. Yet that little movement is enough to now give the back a leverage advantage. Burrow flips it to him, Mixon puts a little move against the diving tackling attempt and finishes strong in order to get him to the 50. Head coach Zach Taylor and offensive coordinator Brian Callahan clearly understood what the Bills wanted to do defensively, added a few design plays that gave them advantages in this matchup, and Burrow's mental fortitude, rather than making a bunch of big throws down the field, in favor of checking the run calls and taking the easy throws, where he got Buffalo out of position, that's what made the difference in this one. The Bengals only averaged 6 air yards per attempt, but got another 6 after the catch on average, and through 3 quarters, had 10 rushing first downs on 23 attempts. But now, let's get to the side that was even more impressive, and some of the things that defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo did that really messed with Josh Allen and the Bills' offense. I picked out 5 clips here as well, plus one quick look at the follow-up play. On this first one, the Bills are about to go 3 and out on back-to-back possessions to start the day. On the first third down, the Bengals showed a double A-gap mug look, where they brought one of those linebackers and play cover 1. This time they're in a dime set, which some people like to refer to as dollar as well, with 3 down linemen here and those 2 linebackers walked up. But here they drop both guys out into those hook zones while playing cover 1 otherwise yet again, but this time they do it differently. The Bills are in a 3x1 set here and get Stephon Diggs on this little short motion into a stack. In order to run, call it a Mills mesh combination, as Diggs and the C receiver out wide, break inside on dig routes, and we have that mesh action between the tight end as the number 3 here, in trips. And from the opposite side, Isaiah McKenzie as the single receiver in this condensed split coming underneath. All those DBs do a great job of funneling their receivers inside towards the deep middle safety help, with those linebackers creating an unclear picture underneath as crosses are coming their way. The boundary corner can't even really run with Isaiah McKenzie just because of that ground that he would have to cover, working over the top. But Josh Allen would need to wait all the way until this guy's cleared those hook defenders, and he doesn't have that time, because as we look at the rush, we have 2 great reps from Trey Hendrickson beating the left tackle around the corner, and then check out the nose tackle BJ Hill here, because you had those 2 linebackers walked up and occupying the guards, which creates the threat that they at least have to respect of them being part of the rush. He straight up bench presses the center back in towards the space of Josh Allen. And now, even though Josh probably wants to step up with Hendrickson flashing off the edge, he doesn't have that space to. So instead he's already being wrapped up as he tries to flip it to his back in the flats, and check out how the entire Bengals defense swarms to the ball. They pick it up just in case and get the Bills off the field yet again. Throughout the day, Bigelow brought simulated pressures, meaning the defense rushes only 4, but brings guys from the 2nd and 3rd level to give the illusion of less defenders being in coverage, and they got free runners at the quarterback on several occasions. This is the final snap of the first quarter, after the Bengals just went up 14-0, with a tight end to the left, and this looks like a pretty standard single high coverage for Cincinnati. But really they're running this intricate version of invert cover 2, with the deep safety widening towards the boundary, and the field side corner bailing deep, while splitting the strong safety off the edge and peeling off the defensive end on the other side. They really flood those underneath passing lanes, which you'll see makes Josh hold onto the ball long enough for the rush to get home. The Bills have what I referred to earlier as an Ohio concept at the top, with a dig by the tight ends and a quick inbreaker underneath by Stephon Diggs, along with a fade and a deep out to the field. And really Beasley in the slot down here is the only one in this deep out route that actually has a chance here. But even that, as we let this roll, that's a long throw in those conditions, and as you can see here with Mike Hilton dropping underneath it, so there's not really that much space anyway if he sinks here. The ball would have had to come up with a lot of velocity, but also probably can't be thrown on the line, and Josh gets swallowed up back here anyway because he already has his eyes down with the rush coming in, as we watch this from the end zone view here in a second. Because as you can see, as we get to it here, the right defensive end will attack the offensive tackle pretty directly, allowing the ball to come off the corner untouched to Allen, who pulls the ball down just as he sees him and tries to make something happen here, dropping his eyes and trying to create something with his legs. It results in a sack, and they're behind the chains again, 2nd and long. Now let's look at something that isn't a designer pressure or coverage, but rather a snap and run defense, where studying formation tendencies and shooting a gun paid off. The Bills just got to 1st and goal from the 9 at the end of a good opening drive in the second half. This looks like a motion, but if you look at it from the all-22 angle, you actually see that Gabe Davis was supposed to be over on the left for this tight bunch on the long. And this is one of the formations that they really like to run out of, having some bodies over here on the spot while the linebacker is stacked over the guard. But nickel Mike Hilton knows that as well. So when Buffalo runs due to the strong side here, and you have those double teams on the interior D linemen trying to push them back into those linebackers, along with securing the edge with this side over here, and potentially give the running back a little bit of room to navigate out here if the defense is pinched in. And Cook is looking to bounce outside here, but you can see Mike Hilton shooting inside of McKenzie. You don't see his number, but Trey Hendrickson here completely standing up Dawson Knox at the point of attack, and then also Logan Wilson scraping over the top of this action. You have 3 defenders in the backfield wrapping up Cook for a 2-yard loss, and Buffalo ultimately had to settle for a field goal here. Down by 17 now again, Josh Allen makes a couple of big throws whilst being heated up, and they get to 1st and 10 just outside the opposing 30. The Bills are in a 3-by-1 set with a tight end as the single receiver in this reduced split, and run this sort of switch concept with Gabe Davis and Isaiah McKenzie curling up at different depths, along with Stephon Diggs, the number 3 here, pulling away any potential middle droppers and being isolated with a safety if they rotate into a single high shell. Plus they want to create kind of the same horizontal stretch with a curl by the tight ends and a swing by the running back out here. In theory, a pattern that should work if the Bengals drop into cover 3 as the pre-snap picture will tell you. That's what Lou Anarumo calls up as well, but there's two things Buffalo doesn't account for. The Bengals do bring 4, but that includes Mike Hilton again coming on a blitz off the slot to the field, where he disguises this until the last possible moment and comes from like 15 yards away with 1,000,000 miles per hour, and the backside defensive end drops out into that hook area, exactly where the tight end calls up. And as we watch this unfold, those linebackers never just spot drop, but understand how to match and guide targets to the help. That's why Davis isn't going to be open down here, because Wilson drops underneath it, and that's also why Diggs isn't actually isolated with the safety, but rather you have Jermaine Pratt carrying down the hashes like 20-25 yards deep. Back to what's happening up front, the defensive end has gone inside of the offensive tackle, who at the very last moment recognizes that he's late to pick up Mike Hilton here, can't get a hand on him, he knocks the ball loose from Allen, and you can certainly argue the refs should have stuck with the call on the field of a fumble. And I just wanted to quickly show the very next snap, and the effect all of this has on Allen. He is starting to see ghosts back there, and you see him triple clutching the ball before taking off finally for a 6-yard gain. I mean, look at him. He just doesn't trust what he sees and wants to go into creation mode instead right away. Finally, the Bills get to a 4th and 7 from the opposing 16 after that, but down by 17 points decide to go for it here, rather than kicking the field goal and cutting it to a 2-possession game. They come out in an empty formation with trips to the left side, Knox and Diggs the other way. They've got another switch release at the top here with a post and wheel route, along with Beasley on this sort of delayed out route right at the sticks. While on the other side you have Knox on a seam or bender route, mostly trying to create space out here for Diggs on this fade route. And there isn't much of a schematic detail to point out here about Cincinnati's defense. They've already run double slot blitzers and creepers on that drive. So going to a dime set and running 2-man with a TE twist on the weak side over here, that's already enough for Allen to peek down and feel uncomfortable in the pocket. So as we let this roll here, he doesn't have his feet set to let the ball go for Diggs here, who's right now even with a rookie corner and a chance at the end zone. That's the play after which we saw the star wide receiver get fired up at the sideline, by the way. Everybody else does a great job playing to the outside leverage and funneling receivers towards the safety help. Allen does buy some time, but he's a little late to potentially hit Beasley here on this out route, and comes back, ultimately just throwing it up to Davis on this jump ball. Eli Apple knocks it down, and it's basically a game over. I want to once again heap praise here on defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo for the way he changed up the picture post-snap and brought pressure from all different depths and angles, constantly keeping Josh Allen on edge and making him play hero ball. Josh was pressured on 32% of his dropbacks, and that probably doesn't even do it justice. Nothing was ever easy, and he was getting banged around pretty good, even when he just tried to flip it out there to somebody underneath. With the Bengals going back to Kansas City on Sunday to face the Chiefs for the 4th time over the past 2 seasons, yet again for a chance to go to the Super Bowl, especially with the one-legged Patrick Mahomes to some degree, and those replacement up front for Cincinnati on the O-line. I can't wait to watch this chess match between both coaching staffs and which little wrinkles they'll have up their sleeves for each other. Last year in the AFC title game, I thought the Bengals had the edge on defense for sure, while Burrow made some incredible plays along with it. Let's see how this one plays out. And that's gonna do it. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this breakdown, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe to our channel if you haven't yet, and feel free to share with a friend or two. That would really help me out. I was going back and forth on which game I wanted to focus on this week, and this is now the 3rd video this season, heavily revolving around the Bengals, but considering the main storyline for Jack's Chiefs was Mahomes hobbling around on one leg and still getting the job done, the Eagles absolutely dominating the Giants, and the 49ers defense continuing their excellence, along with some weird late game clock management by Dallas, yet again, it felt appropriate to talk about what I thought on paper was the most evenly matched contest, yet one side controlled the game throughout, and there were so many cool things that they did from a game plan perspective in order to have the upper hand. For this upcoming week, I will focus on the 2 teams advancing to the Super Bowl, of course, and as I do every year, put out a super detailed preview of the game in written form, aided by some all-22 clips. Be on the lookout for that next Sunday or the following Monday, and of course I'll be active on Instagram and Twitter to share some thoughts on everything else going on, East-West Shrine and Senior Bowl weeks especially, as we advance to free agency and an extensive draft season once an NFL champion has been crowned. In the meantime, you can check out all my other work at hello@footballtalk.com. Link for that can be found in the video description, along with my social media handles, and make sure to check back for my Super Bowl preview. So, until then, see you later. Peace!